It is 5:32, and we're calling the meeting of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone number 1 to order, October 13th. Let's begin with second item on the call to orders. First item on the agenda, second item on the agenda is roll call.
Sure. Ms. Patricia Goldberg,
Present.
Mr. Arturo Garcia. He's online, yes. Mr. Jose Castillo,
Present.
Mr. James Sneidman. I don't see Mr. Sneidman on. Okay. Mr. Henry Sauvignon,
Here.
Mr. Jose Ceballos,
Present.
Ms. Carol Alexander. I don't believe she's on. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda are the minutes of the meeting for August 18, 2020. And these were sent to us by email earlier. I had a chance to review them. I'm assuming all of us have also had a chance to go through them. Are there any questions, changes, deletions to the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve as presented.
I do have one correction.
Okay.
There's a motion where I state Mr. Garcia mentioned, since they were on the topic, that they should reach out to the consultant. I think I didn't think I might have consultant. I think to the college to put an item on the agenda for the next, or maybe I meant them. I'm not too sure, but if staff can just review the minutes and then just if it does say that, then to proceed with accepting them.
Okay, so then we'll check to see whether the word was the consultant reaching out or reaching out to the college.
Yeah.
And based on what the minutes show, we'll make that correction if necessary. Otherwise, is there anything else?
No, that's
Sensing no other changes, it's been moved. Is there a second to the motion?
a second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Very good. Next item on the agenda, citizen comments, item 4. Citizens are required to fill out an online witness card no later than 5:45 p.m. and can be found at the City of Laredo's website. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No more than 3 persons will be allowed to speak on any side of an issue. Speakers may not pass their minutes to another speaker. Comments should be relevant to the city business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. Do we have any comments or any sign up from citizens?
Not at this moment. They do have up to 5:45, so I'll keep an eye on that. But at this moment, there's no citizen comments.
Very good.
Just one comment, Mr. Henry Sevilla.
Yes.
Just to advise that I did invite Mr. Teclo Garcia, our Economic Development Director, to join us for the meeting. Just wanted to advise you on that. Not really a comment, but just wanted to advise you that he's joining us.
That's great. That's great. Teclo, it's good to see you, Mr. Garcia. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Henry.
Okay, item 5 of the agenda. Next item is a discussion with possible action regarding the workshop presented by Able City. Board member comments regarding the information presented, and any other matters incident thereto. And so we know that when we left off at the last meeting, if you'll review your minutes towards the end, Able City was going to move forward with starting focusing on the area we had instructed them to work on, and they were going to start trying to put numbers, pen to paper, so to speak, and coming up with estimates. So let me go ahead and turn the floor over to Able City to begin the presentation.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share right now, and I a couple of statements I'd like to make. I have a lot of other slides that are backups to all the information you're going to see. I shortened the presentation so that we could get directly to what you all want to see in terms of the costs and how we broke down the areas and all of that. If you all need to go back to some other slide or get some information, I do have them here, so we'll be able to do that. So at the meeting in September 9th, this was the motion that came up. It's not the exact motion because it hasn't been come out in the meeting minutes yet, so I went back to the video. And the focus was to go directly to Zaragoza Street as a primary place to start, from the entry to the outlet mall, from the outlet mall to San Agustin Street, then north to Hidalgo, essentially an L, encompassing the four corners of the plaza. It would be phased out according to, and I don't have these as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's up to you to where you want to start. And what you asked me to really look at is the sidewalks, the lighting, trees, potential mural, or use murals for wayfinding, in the opinion of probable cost. So the primary improvements are Zaragoza and then to San Agustin Street. The intent is to provide north to Hidalgo, and then the intent is to provide a walkable and safe connection between the outlet mall, Bridge 1, and Convent Street, San Agustin Plaza, San Agustin Cathedral, connect to It Street, then to the Center for the Arts and the Plaza Theater. And you can see those photographs there of the main nodes that we're connecting. A very beautiful path through the city. And I commend everybody to, going through this process, and I have all the synthesis maps that we went through. If you want to see them later in the presentation. So we'll begin with what we defined on the left-hand side was that L connecting those major nodes with major landmarks in the city. And then what we did is we broke them down to, is there any way to move these? Yeah. Hold on just a second. Drop, okay. Oh, okay, I'll put it over here. Okay. So you can see on the right-hand side, I just broke this down for purposes of discussion in the opinion of probable costs. And the first one we're going to start with is the blue area, then we're going to go to the peak area, and then we're going to go to the yellow area. So in this particular part of the project, you can see that the highlighted in yellow is that little leg that comes off of Salinas Street, because the sidewalk is so simple there and easy to work with that I just added it in there. That includes the demolition and disposal of what's there and building a new sidewalk that's 8 feet wide. The rest of it is essentially what it would cost to mobilize, to traffic control, demolish and dispose of concrete and concrete curb, both sides of Zaragoza Street, not in front of the mall to Salinas Street, because that's new. It's from Salinas to Convent that would be demolished. And new concrete sidewalks put in. I have pictures, which I'll show you after we go through these 3 areas of all the visual investigation we did of all the poles and obstructions and things like that that are on the street. which are very telling, and we're starting to build them up in a CAD drawing that will help us do the renderings of these areas in an authentic way, not just do something that may or may not actually exist there. So it goes through, you can see the list, and you can see for yourself what we itemized. There's a lot of little things on the street that need to be moved and adjusted, and specifically, there are 3 poles that are electrical poles. Not all of you went to do a walkthrough, so I appreciate that Bebe and Henry, or Carol and Henry, both came out. Also, Kirby came out in a different meeting, and we met with Mr. Atsef from AEP to talk about how we would put poles for lighting. You can see there's 4 anticipated there. We did figure out a way to put them in. They would be attached to the building on the outlet mall side. There's a necessity for bollards. We do have a miscellaneous allowance because, you know, there are a lot of unforeseen conditions. And we came up with a number of $456,720. That's construction costs. And this is, again, an opinion, a probable cost without having all the information. You'll see in the photographs that I'll show you in a little bit, just, you know, how intense this place is with different things that we'll have to contend with. The lines that you see, a line item there, there's 3 overhead lines across the street that connect from the main distributor poles across the street into the buildings. Those can be buried at a reasonable, somewhat reasonable cost. I mean, $75,000. And that's not, you know, that there's some, we still need to really, you know, itemize that portion, because AEP, I spoke with Tony yesterday, they're willing to figure out the cost of putting those underneath. It would really be helpful to do that. We had to do that on Iturbide Street to one building, and about 5 years ago, it cost $15,000 to do. And it didn't come, you didn't have to take a pole out, and we had to connect it inside the building. In this case, I think, you know, allocating $25,000 per pole is reasonable, but we have to really talk to AP further to figure that out. Poles, festoon lighting, the cable, the connections, the installation, all this includes installation. So when you go down below the first total, there's programs. I think there's a place where we can do 1 mural. And I would suggest that you take, at some point, ride by and see those buildings that are across the street from the mall. And on Florida Street, they really need help. I can tell you the facade improvement grant that the building, community development did was very successful, and it helped a lot to bring investors downtown. It's going to be difficult to really get people enticed with the condition of those facades down there. They're in really bad shape. So I set a matching grant amount there and a mural amount, and it's $135 between the both. And the total there is $591,720. Again, this is, you know, without having the survey, And really getting into it, it's difficult to get it exactly, but it's a ballpark good estimate. And what's not here is repair, replace, maintain, an allocation of reserves, if possible, since it's really having to do with the improvements that were made. I don't know if this is completely allowable, but since we're dealing with lighting and plants and that sort of thing, there's got to be some kind of reserve. I'd like to defer to Marsh Darcy, so that, when we meet with them, that's a question that we ask them. If they do, other churches accomplish that do not have a management district? Maybe they do. And then, of course, there's some project soft costs, and I just have to get through, figure out what we're going to do first, and then I can meet with some consultants on the survey and the civil. This is essentially, all of it is a civil project, which is really good. I mean, it's just, downtown, they're always doing civil work, repairing streets and sidewalks and letting out contracts for sidewalks. In fact, I got most of my numbers from a project that was just finished, their unit numbers. So they're pretty fresh. However, as I said, you'll see the pictures as we go along. Can I move on to the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, this is just showing you what we've been doing. All those numbers there are from WebCAD. We're starting to identify the property owners on the streets and getting those. Obviously, there's a lot of different issues on the sidewalks, and cataloging them, cataloging where all those poles are, so that we can move forward in an intelligent and precise manner, even before we do surveys, so that we can actually figure out a closer cost, since we do have a budget. So here's the next section. This one is as you can imagine, came out more. However, I want to direct you to the highlighted part, because that includes some monies for the plaza, and some repairs in the actual plaza. So those could conceivably be taken out for a completely different, phase for this particular part of the project. It could come later. This includes the removal of the pavers, the colonial clay brick pavers that are there, and disposal, and new concrete pavers equal to those that exist already around the Center for the Arts, BBVA, partially because there's about 4 different kinds of pavers, but partially into Tangelo, and even partially around here. I mean, they filled in gaps with some of those. It would all have to be removed. And what I'm suggesting, or we're suggesting, is that they be replaced with the same ones that they used over around the Center for the Arts and BBVA. They're very good. They're that jagged type of brick is used so that when cars turn and movement, there's not a lot of displacement of those bricks. That's why those bricks around the plaza are all messed up because when cars turn, they disjoint them. And so there's a lot of movement. Those other ones have lasted a long time, and they're pretty good to maintain. Also, if the paving at the cathedral is a brick paver as well. Now, of course, on the sidewalks, they don't have to be jagged, but we can take the color that's there and actually, I think it's the same as, it looks exactly the same as the other one on the street, that same color. And so there'll be uniformity there. And we're suggesting that all of that come out and go to, and connect to the portion that we're doing. That's, in other words, it'll all connect all the way to the mall. A lot of this is repetition, suggesting for more trees. I believe the trees that are out there are Mexican white oak. They're perfect. They last 100 years. They're wonderful trees. Of course, what's there right now is live oaks. They're also good, so we can maybe use both. We have 2 lines that need to be buried. They're simpler because I don't see as many connections up at the top, but they're coming across Flores Street. And since we're doing this work, I think it's incumbent, or it's a really good idea that we bury these so that, you know, we get some of those poles out of the way. Our streets are narrow, it's difficult. And since we're doing this work, and they're not that, I don't think these are as complicated as the other ones on Zaragoza between Convent and Flores. So we have, again, a miscellaneous allowance, but it's a contingency for unforeseen conditions. I think most of them have probably already been found since they already, you know, all that paver work is fairly new. It was done in the replaced and picked up, but late 70s. So I don't think we're going to find any artifacts. And again, I didn't see any, for the programs, I really didn't see any place for a mural in this area. So I didn't put one in there. And I also put a facade improvement allowance of $75,000 for grants. And I think, I mean, if we follow the one that was done, that would be 3 facades. I think it would be very helpful in this area. There's more than 3 facades that need work, but I think with that, it would make a great impact. So that comes out to $1,120,000. I can't see the bottom.
Yep, $120,700.
Thank you. It's a little far. Anyways, I also have some reserves, and then of course the project costs. Now the yellow, if we take the yellow part out, because you can essentially take that part out, that's another project, another day, and it would be, you know, less than $1 million, just shy. And then the other thing that we could do is look at adding to the previous portion of the project that we did that T, and we just added the portion between Convent and Flores, the little leg that comes out. That's probably about a $175,000, $200,000 project. So I want you all to keep that in mind as well. I'm going to go to the next one. Oops. So again, we're starting to put all of the information together. These are hardline drawings, and they're measured. not from, I mean, we use Google as a base map, but then we verify everything. Okay, so this last part is the Tangela walkway and the connection all the way to the Plaza Theater. I added the other side, and I'll explain why. And the other side of the Center for the Arts, that portion, that little leg that's on the other side of the Center for the Arts. And I'll tell you why. So let me just say, and you'll see in the pictures when I scroll through them, let me just say that the Tangela walkway, in my opinion, needs to be completely redone. There's too many different materials, but worst of all, it's very difficult to walk down because of all the change of levels. It's just been worked on and messed with so long that it's in terrible shape. Anticipating that is in these numbers. It's a beautiful walkway. It can be fixed. It could be simplified. And that's our recommendation, that we just, take everything out and it become a shared street. Essentially, a shared street is where the sidewalks and the street are all on one, well, it's not one level, but it's like, there's not like a curb and gutter for the sidewalks. And it'll work wonderfully. And there'll be a beautiful addition to downtown and all the improvements that are being made. So from Lincoln Street to Hidalgo, that whole area, in fact, all the 4 streets around the Center for the Art are in great shape. Well, I should say 3 of them are. When they did some improvements on a sewer line that had to be taken out, the leg on the other side was covered with a stamped red concrete, which is now pink. It looks terrible. To replace that with the same concrete brick as what's originally there would be really great, and it's really the only thing that needs to be done there. Going back to the east side, the connection between Lincoln and Hidalgo, all that's being proposed there is to widen the sidewalk a little bit. In these numbers, or clean up the lighting poles that are there. They're very faded. Maybe we can get them repainted, adjustments, things like that. Get some cable lighting around. Maybe add 1 or 2. You can see from the list there what that is. And again, there is a location for a mural right over here. We're on the Roxas. Sorry, right here. We're on the Roxas. Right here, there's a great wall for a mural. I think one was proposed at one point, and then this was a while back, a few years ago, and then I think landmark board said no, but I think, I don't see why, let me put it that way, but it's a great location for a mural. So I put an allocation there for that. And then facade improvements, they really kind of need to be here. There's these 2 buildings, whatever's left over of whatever happens next to the Plaza Theater, and 1 or 2 over here. Whoever gets in line to do that would be doing great justice to this plaza. It would look really beautiful. The paving on the Center for the Arts Plaza is in terrible shape. I didn't put any allocation. I may have put something for miscellaneous repairs. Yeah, that won't cover it, but, you know, it'd be nice to fix up what we could, because there really is not much to be done around there. We could add trees, we could do other stuff around there, but we haven't gotten to that area and really done the investigation as much as we need to. But from what I can tell by walking around and riding, we haven't done a full investigation. It's a very doable part of this project. And of course, the Angela walkway would be amazing. And the total we have here is, including the programs, is $745,000. Again, we also have repair and maintenance. That's not included in that. And then, of course, the soft costs. But we're close in all of them. And I'll just take you a little bit. This is the first part of San Agustin. The second part, we're really looking at all of this, seeing where we're placing the trees, all of that stuff. I just want to take you through, these are just some of the photographs. I'm going to take them to you really fast so that you can see. These are 1/4 of the measurements that we took of poles, of just stuff sticking out of the ground. Where tree wells are. This one on the right is on Flores Street. We suggest that this whole sidewalk, in fact, it's in those numbers, be done. Again, as we go down the street, you can see these are all obstruction. Oh, look at the paving over here. You've seen that. But until you actually really, there's so many obstructions everywhere. ADA out the window. This is again Zaragoza Street. Here are the conditions of the facade on one side. This is at Convent over here. Oh, I love this. Anyways, we really went in there because, let me tell you, a sidewalk has to be ADA compliant, but you're not required to take it up to the entry. If the entry isn't, that's the problem of the store owner. And when he does anything to it, he will have to be compliant, which means they'll have to do it in the store. This is actually a very wide sidewalk, needs some help. We have it replaced in the numbers. All the streets are different widths, of course. There's all these little things happening everywhere. The Tangelo, you're aware of. I mean, right here, everybody, during Jambuzi, people are tripping all the time. This is what I'm suggesting becomes a shared street. New planting areas. This is very dangerous when people are walking. That's it, guys. Let me go back.
Henry, are you open to comments?
Yes, I was just waiting for the presentation to conclude.
It's concluded.
Very good. So first, I'd like the record to show that Kirby Snideman has joined the meeting. Welcome, Kirby. And let's go ahead and if you're volunteering for first comment, go ahead and begin, and then we'll go to each board member one by one.
Sure. As we haven't made any final decision yet, I will make the same case I've made before and just provide a reminder about what the purpose of the TERS is, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. The idea is that we freeze the current tax rates that go to the city, and we take any increment, anything additional that comes in from the improvement of values, and we use that in our fund to inject that in and then increase the tax values even more. In other words, we say, okay, whatever the value is, the proposed value that's coming in for this area, let's, for the city, you only take this amount more, and anything extra that comes in, we'll use that increment, but we'll try to change this trajectory. If we don't do anything, if the city doesn't do anything for this area, no new investment, then the trajectory of this investment just maybe continues at 1 or 2% a year. But if we cap what the city's going to use, and we take a few $100,000 or a few million we had hoped originally, and we inject that in strategically into the area, and then we put the area on a different trajectory, maybe 3-4% a year, and we have an impact. We have we grow something that starts to have an impact on its own. Now, most people probably already know that's how tax increment refinancing zones work, but just a reminder here to say that when we make any decision here about how we're going to use this money, what we want to ask is, how is it going to impact property values? And if we make these streets more beautiful, but it has no impact to the surrounding businesses, the surrounding properties, in other words, it doesn't cause a property owner to put money, their own private money, into their property, and then the value of their property goes up. No matter how beautiful we make the streets, no matter how much we impact the public space, if it didn't have an impact on the private space and the value of the private space, then we didn't do our job well. And so, to me, the argument I'll make here for Zaragoza, and especially around the plaza, is that we've got a few property owners, because they're bigger sections. A lot of the property adjoining these streets is already public, the plaza itself. So we make the streets around the plaza greater, but the plaza itself, the park, is all public. So there's no private there. Versus if we went on a street like Iturbide and where there's already some things happening, I know there's already attention has been given there. But if we build on what's already happening there, what could be the impact if we improve the streetscape there? Does it cause property owners to say, hey, you know what, city's doing some stuff here, things are really looking up on the street, you know what, I'm gonna buy this property, I'm gonna pour $100,000 into it, I'm really gonna fix it up. Carol, I don't know if you're here. Are you here, Carol?
She wasn't earlier.
Well, we were having this conversation when we went for the walk with Able Cities, and Carol was like, man, I finally get it, Kirby, what you're trying to say. And one of the challenges, if Able Cities, if you can flip to the slide that shows the plaza, keep going. It shows San Augustine.
Here? Want this one or which one?
Next slide.
Okay.
Next. Keep going.
That's it.
I thought you had some pictures of the survey.
That's the picture section.
I have it on, if you let me
This is
exit,
good.
I have it.
If you stop right here, if you look on San Augustine, okay, so there's another challenge. If we do improvements along San Augustine, you've got the big parking lot on the right, and then on the left, those buildings don't actually front San Augustine. So again, you're making improvements to a street, and what's the likelihood it's going to impact the property owner? Because the properties don't open on San Augustine, they front the other streets. And then of course, the parking lot is not something we're going to, spur development on. It's going to remain a parking lot there based on who owns it and what it's used for. So my voice is just a voice of concern here that I think this amount of expenditure and what we're spending it on isn't going to have the desired impact of what the TERS is for, and that is to spur private development. I think we could choose an area, and maybe what we were talking about with trees and lighting, I think we did trees and lighting strategically in a certain area would have a much bigger impact on private values than this. I'm not sure there's going to be much of an impact at all to property values, and I don't think it's going to spur private investment very much. Now, if you want to disagree with me, please do, because I'd love to be wrong. But that's my take on this: is we're not going to be impacting private property values very much.
Thank you,
Henry,
Kirby. I know
can
that Jose, I was going to say, I know that Jose, you had already written a number of comments on the chat area. So why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that so you can keep those for the record. Hopefully they register when you close the meeting. But I agree with Kirby. I really think, and I missed the last meeting. I apologize for that. I wasn't planning on missing it, but so I wasn't part of how you guys, I guess, condense the areas, which I agree they're areas of interest. But to me, the Iturbide area from Santa Ursula to Flores is an area that could get activated in the manner that Kirby's mentioning. I also think maybe not activation in the form of tax value on Zaragoza, but I know the county has some plans, and hopefully they still put some county bond money to activate some of the properties on that. I think it's the 800 block of Zaragoza. There's a few there. I know one's been for sale, hasn't sold, but maybe there's some aesthetic value there and cultural value there that we can tie in. And maybe it's just a gateway. Maybe it's not a sidewalk improvement project, but I really would like to take the opportunity. I don't want to belabor this anymore. We've been in planning for so long. I feel like we're just going in circles, but I do want to take the opportunity to look at what they've put on paper. I'm doing this from my phone, so I've been trying to focus on the numbers, but I didn't see any lighting. I may have missed it. Maybe it's there, but I do agree that I think Kirby hit that, also that on the nail on the head. I think we can do a lot with lighting, and probably not expand our areas very much, but do concentrate efforts to get these property owners to feel like they should continue to invest in an area that's even now more depressed than it's ever been. So those are just my general thoughts. I don't think we have much more to go beyond just really coming back to that strategy of activating private ownership and making the decisions that match that. I think there's a lot of money going into the San Bernardo strip. I really, and Henry, I kind of took, I know you didn't have that strip in originally in your top of mind for you. And then I said, well, Tatangelo's got to be on for that tripping, the tripping hazard that it is. And because it's an attractive place for visitors, but I think we're going to have to find a balance. So for me, I'd like the opportunity to look at what's been presented and the numbers, and in very short order, come back along the strategy that Kirby mentioned, and trying to balance all these areas. I don't think we've ever discussed putting anything on Flores. If we take the idea that, well, we'd come full circle, include Flores, we could do that on any block, so I want to thank Able City for, again, putting together a great presentation. I think in a week or two, I think we'd be ready to take action. I'd be ready next week. I just need a few days to look at what we have, and then we can go from there. Thanks, Henry, for the time.
Very good. Any other board members? Okay, so I agree. I first of all, Able City, thank you for the presentation. I think sitting down and looking at it is going to help us comment, specifically because there's a budget now attached. Arturo Garcia made a couple of comments on the chat area. And I think it's something we take into consideration when we're talking about this, but we need to get to Able City the comments of the board members so that they can refine this just one more time, so to speak, so we can take action. I'm wondering if we couldn't get this information to Able City by the end of this week so that we can meet again next week. So that we can receive the information from Able City prior to meeting.
Okay, we did the email comment, and this is what you're suggesting, to send the presentation, this one and all the other stuff that goes with it. And that way you can make comments on it, and then we do a tabulation of comments like we did here. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, I don't know how much if we need to tabulate anymore, because we know the improvements we've refined them. We know we've talked about lights, we talk about trees. We narrowed it down to 4, maybe 5. I need to review the notes for that. So that part is already narrowed down.
This is what everybody wanted last meeting, okay?
Right.
And
yeah, that's correct.
This got generated from.
Right. And that's what we want to take, Viviana. We want to take this presentation that you had, if that could be sent to us.
Okay.
If anybody would like a prior presentation, that's fine. Please ask for it. But definitely, let's just treat this one.
This is what we.
Very good.
Okay, but let me just say that it was pretty emphatic at the last meeting that this, we want to see numbers on this. And break it down however you want. But this is where we're going to concentrate on. I mean, Iturbide was discussed, and I guess you'll see that the meeting minutes when you get them. But I think it was pretty clear that, there was a desire to go there, and then it was pulled back at the last meeting, no. And I think both Bebe and Patty had strong concerns about that. And
yeah,
I think
and that's fine, because those comments we can still we can still adjust this slightly, because what we're talking about is an additional street, going down a street a little bit. That's what we want the board members to comment on now. So if we're saying, let's pay attention of Santa Ursula from Iturbide, from Santa Ursula to San Agustin, that's fine. We need to hear that comment so that we can all talk about this, or Zaragoza from Santa Ursula to San Agustin, so that we can hear that comment. I think the most applicable comment we have right now, and the most important thing we've had, are two things that are very important to this. Jose Castillo has just, if you didn't read it, check the chat box, because he tells us how much is available. And remember, we're talking about going to the city to see if there's something we can leverage based on this. Although we've been told that it's going to be very difficult to leverage this with additional monies, but I think we need to at least keep in mind that this is a starting point, and it's not going to grow, too much larger than this. One, and two, Kirby summed it up very well. Is what we're agreeing to going to incentivize the private sector in that area to do something? Arturo.
Mr. Chairman, Henry, thank you very much for giving me a few minutes. Just want to mention, I really need to, you guys know I've been really pushing hard so we can start moving dirt. And, I think we need to keep the eye on the prize, like I say, and keep our target still in sight. Because, right now is the prime time to do it. You got COVID and everything's kind of slowed down, empty buildings everywhere. And, once the economy starts moving mid next year, we don't want to be doing construction, removing an entire street while everybody's trying to get their business started again. So we need to get this thing started as soon as possible. That's all I want to just kind of mention. I've seen the way when we go in there and tear a street and we're there for 2-3 months and you devastate a business. So I want to see if we can minimize that, especially right now when everything's already kind of slowed down anyways. So let's keep moving.
If I can comment on that, Mr.
Yes, please.
Yeah, my comment to that would be, with 800,000, we should not be tearing up any streets. We don't have money for construction. So I know we put that in there, but wow, 600 grand for pavers. That's just, we're going to go through all that money and it's not going to have really the intended impact. And So what we're talking about here, I think we still need to talk about lighting and streets. I think we really need to be realistic about the impact we can have. And I still hope we can still have the discussion about where to do this. I walked with Carol, me and Carol and Able Cities, we walked and we talked about this, and I talked with Carol about the idea of what we're trying to do and incentivizing. After walking that, at the end of the conversation, she said, that's why I wish she was here to say it, was, you know what, Kirby, I get it. I get what you're trying to say here, and maybe this is not the right place to do this, because are we going to really impact businesses and property owners to invest? Are we going to change San Agustin Plaza from a park to businesses? No, it's going to stay a park. Are we going to change that parking lot? No. Are we going to change what happens at La Posada? No. They're already doing their thing, and they're kind of at their peak where they're going to be. We're not going to impact those, but there's still a lot of, even though there's something already happening on Iturbide, and the best argument I heard for not spending more money on Iturbide was, hey, we already focused on there. We need to focus somewhere else. Well, my argument is, yeah, that's like the best thing downtown's got going. Why would you not put more there? If you got two kids and one's got good grades, the other one doesn't, which one are you going to send to college? If you don't have enough money to send both, you're going to send the one that's got good grades. They got the best chance of going to college. And right now, Iturbide has got the good grades. And we got so many buildings on Iturbide that are unoccupied, that are vacant, that are underutilized. And man, if we put some trees and lighting, we wouldn't even have to spend all $800,000, but if we spent that on Iturbide, most of it, we could make that street an amazing street without,
Yes.
And I'm not talking construction. We're talking facial improvements.
And we're starting the discussion all over again on the first focus. And remember, unless something's changed, and we're not worried about connecting the outlets. Remember, the idea here is not necessarily to pave everything from the outlets to the Center for the Arts, pave up all the L. The idea is to create a connection so that someone's walking from point A to point B, they're enticed to walk from point A to point B. So we create a walkable area, and someone that doesn't say, I shouldn't go down that path because there doesn't seem to be something over there. So I take your point. I take your point very well. Yeah, I take your point very well.
That's a great point. You got two ideas. You got the idea how we can get investment downtown. You got one idea is we got the Mexican shoppers shopping at the outlet, but they don't walk into downtown. Well, what if we could get them into downtown? Would they spend more money, and then businesses would want to be there? So that's one idea, and that's this idea between creating this nice walkable area to get those Mexican shoppers in. But one thing I want to highlight is the outlet has been very disappointing. And the reason is because they thought they could capture the Monterreyan who was traveling from Monterrey to San Antonio and spend some of their money. The truth is, if something stopped. So what we ended up getting was we got the Nuevo Laredoan who wants to come and have an American shopping experience, but doesn't have that much money to spend.
Yep.
And so I've gone down to the outlet mall several times, and every time I'm down there, I talk to shop managers, I talk to retailers, I talk to the people who work there. I say, how's business? Are people buying? How are things going? And a lot of those businesses are locked into multi-year leases, so they can't get out. But the ones who had shorter leases, they've already left. So that idea that we can pull in the Mexican shopper into downtown, and that's our secret to success for getting some properties invigorated downtown. Look, that was an idea from 3 or 4 years ago. I know, because I was part of the team that put that together, and it just hasn't materialized. It hasn't. And that was pre-COVID. It hasn't materialized. So to me, I say we send the kid that's got good grades to college, and that's Iturbide. It's in 3 years ago when we were doing our study, 4 years ago, there were no bars on Iturbide, or maybe there was one. Since then, and just in the last 2 years, we've had 10 bars open up, and many of those on Iturbide or in close vicinity. So I know we're starting over the conversation.
Excuse me. Yeah. So I don't think it was as simple as just getting people from the outlets to come to the plaza, as much as connecting both areas. Because if you remember, The idea was that there was going to be more activity if there were a conference center, the revitalization of the cathedral, and just make it a walkable path. So it was not just one way; it was a two-way kind of deal. And two, if again, risking the criticism here, I hear from some board members that we're ready to move forward, and this is what we discussed the last time, and now we're starting to, not starting again, but we're refocusing. So if this is what we're going to be doing very often, we aren't going to be getting to that point to start. If we're now going to be saying, let's just put the money into Iturbide. So guys, we need to make a decision and we need to comment on this. Excuse me, Vivian, let me just finish. And also, I don't think it's a Sophie's Choice kind of deal, Kirby. I think we need to, the TERS wasn't created just for Iturbide. It was created for a zone. It's supposed to benefit the zone. And we've done a good job of narrowing it down to get to this area here. But if the idea is just, if we're going to bring it just to one street, then I'm going to want comments from more comment or more discussion on this. It is very little money. I grant you that much. I know it's not much, but if we're putting it back into Iturbide and Iturbide alone, then or for the most part, then this is another discussion. I'm sorry, Able City.
Yes, well, I just want two things. We need to figure out a way that everybody can get to the site and have a discussion, because this is what we tried to do before this meeting, and we can only do it piecemeal. And I guess the city told us we can't do it. So maybe if I can get a little tour with somebody, with some of the people who didn't go, we can walk the same tour and we can talk about it. That's one thing. The other thing is, of course, the economic development impact of whatever project we do. And while I understand Kirby completely, and in many ways he speaks the voice of the economic developer. He's got a lot of experience in that. I do want to really stress that this is the historic center of the city, and the words that Patty has said have resonated in my mind a lot, because I also, feel that there should be kinds of incentive packages, and lighting and things that draw people to things that get more investment here, which I'm hoping we'll have a meeting, a committee meeting with Marsh Darcy before we make any final decision. And so that does carry an impact, that we have such a historic center, and there's so much money being poured into the Plaza Theater, to the diocese, and obviously the mall has already happened, and we have a very strong corporate company here with La Posada that is always there to help in any way possible. We just haven't reached out in a very yet. That's one of our points, that we have to talk to our stakeholders a little bit when we finally have something that we all agree on. But anyways, I just wanted to make sure that we speak to Marsh Darcy, maybe Friday. Whoever has some time available, I'd like to know a couple of people who are interested in doing that.
Yeah, I'll join in. I got some questions I can ask.
Oh.
Very good. Any other comments?
Yes, the only comment I would, I could be involved in the meeting on Friday if you'd like. As far as the meeting that was scheduled for walk to walk the zone, I wasn't even aware of it until it was about to happen. So I don't know how that came to fruition, but I was I found out a few hours before.
It didn't
I don't
happen.
know. Huh?
It didn't happen. It was.
No, I'm saying when you walked with Bebe, when you all walked around downtown, and you all were trying to figure out who was going to make it and who wasn't. I got very little notice.
Oh, okay. I'll
So I
check
don't
my.
know I think I was left out of that email.
Okay, I'll check my emails. I
Well,
apologize.
let's do it again. Let's do it again. I would say you got to walk it, to really get the feel for how we're going to spend this money and is it going to make an impact to property owners.
I agree with Kirby, and I think, Patty, part of that was the fact that we needed to make sure we didn't have 4 board members there. So Able City did a couple of these walks at different times with 3 of us, so that we didn't get to the fourth equaling a quorum. But we should do another one. I think that it wouldn't hurt, and it would reinforce a couple of things.
Henry, as long as we notice it, we can do one for all of us, and I think that's important for all of us to be there. So we could have.
I agree.
As the weather's cooling down, I say we do this on location and we walk it. And
okay, Kirby, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead and just speak to the city about doing this. I've already talked till I'm blue in the face, and I was told we can't.
Well,
Kirby,
So
City, Miss Christina Hale advised us that we couldn't have quorum in an open setting like that. Like, we couldn't proceed with a meeting. But, I mean, you can reach out to her and explain to her what you all are trying to do, and maybe you get a different response. But she advised us, and she was actually going to try to join us for today's meeting just to answer those questions. But I believe.
Was that pre-COVID?
Well, there's 2 issues. So one is we're not being advised to have meetings in person yet. But the other issue is with the Opens Meeting Act, you can't have a quorum in that type of public. It's not considered like a public meeting. You have to have it in a space.
So the only thing, Tina, I would say to that, just very briefly, and again, I'm tired of the conversation with the city because we already did this one time before. We were given permission. We did 2 walking tours, and now we can't do walking tours. And by the way, this was permission granted again by the city through the legal department. But I will add, I just did a cursory check on the internet, and in June 29th of 2020, the Bovina Independent School District did a walking tour. In 2019 of November, the city of Buda did a walking tour of a construction site. In 2019 September, Travis County did a walking tour of a construction site for their emergency services units. And I found a couple of more. So other cities are doing walking tours of construction sites and of projects, but we can't do them in Laredo. So someone needs to do some homework.
Let me have a conversation with legal. I've been involved in multiple in the past, and yeah, we'll have a conversation because that would be great. So I'll talk with legal about that.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Thank you, Kirby. Okay, so let me, sensing that we're already at the hour point, and I know that the meeting is, I made a mistake the last time. The meeting is for an hour, or is it an hour and a half?
We don't put an end date, but usually meetings are an hour.
I think, Henry, Mr. Chairman, I think we just need time to soak this stuff in. I mean, I don't think keeping with the meeting on any longer. If we can get an email with all the information that was provided in the presentation by tomorrow, so we can start looking at it, would be good. And then we can and we can get with a consultant with Able City individually and kind of give them our comments.
Right, you beat me to the punch. That's what I was going to say. If there were not any more discussion, and I didn't want to prolong the meeting if we didn't have any more to discuss. I think what we need to do now is review the information we have, make the suggestions we have in writing to Able City, and then we need to, Able City needs to distill the information and then bring it back to us. But I'm thinking we need to do this week, receive it tomorrow at the latest, and then comment by Friday at the latest. In other words, respond to Able City. Can we agree on that as board members? Very good. Thank you. Second, there was a comment that a board member made in passing that I think we need to bring up, and that's for the record, Able City, how, or maybe City of Laredo, question here, invoicing us for activity that's been done to date. How does that work?
Are you talking to me or to the city of Laredo?
Well, I'd like to make it simpler, Mr. Chairman. Can we have a status report on cost, expenses, monthly, related to tourist expenses to include consulting costs on a monthly basis? That's my motion.
Okay, it's been moved that we receive a monthly report on expenses by Able City on the tourist project.
In general.
In general. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Sensing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. Okay, then let me turn to the agenda one more time. The next meeting, let's talk about meeting again. I know we don't want to wait another month. So, board members, I'd like your comments as to when we should meet again.
Henry, I would suggest within a week, if we feel that's enough time to get our comments in and to possibly do a tour. I would say by the end of next week.
How about next week, same time? Tuesday?
I'm going to be out of town next week. I can't do a tour then, but I could certainly attend a meeting.
Okay, if it's so, Kirby, you'll have a better idea about whether we're able to do the walking tour or not by Monday or Tuesday of next week, right?
I'll try to talk to legal today or tomorrow or the next day, and so I'll get back to you by Thursday.
Just why don't you have 72 hours to post? Remember,
right? And then we'll discuss it, and then we'll set something. I think we've been given a feel for how soon we want to meet, which is soon. Patty, we'll take into account that you would be able to attend a meeting if it were remote, but not in person if we were on Tuesday. Is that the day? Is that the only day you're out?
No, I'm out the whole week next week.
Oh, the whole week. Well,
Yeah,
if we do, we'll remote you in, so to speak.
Can I make a
Okay, and
suggestion, Chairman?
maybe I.
Yeah, please.
If we do the walking tour, let's wait 2 weeks so Patty can do it. If we do virtually, let's do next week if Patty can attend.
Perfect.
Because I'd definitely like Patty to be on that walking tour.
I second Mr. Steinman's motion, if that's a motion that he's making.
Let's just take it as a suggestion right now. We don't need it as a motion, and we'll work within that guideline.
Okay.
Just in case things change because of the discussion with the city on the meetings and everything. But we'll note it again as an objective. Anything else? Very good. Then I'd like to entertain a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
Moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Very good. This meeting is adjourned